Hey, gang, welcome to yet another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. My guest today is not your typical HR leader, and her firm reflects that with a common sense approach and keeping it real. I am so incredibly happy to share the journey and what the future holds for my friend, Angela Christman. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm really excited to be here.
Heck yeah. This is fun facts about I had breakfast with you a handful of months ago, and it was really great to get to know you. And when I get to know somebody a little bit deeper, I always want to try and talk somebody to come on the show. The work you do is super impactful. You got some really cool things coming out in the near future. So I'm excited to share your journey with our listeners.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm excited too. It should be a fun conversation.
Yeah. All right. So let's dig in. Boy, I'll tell you one thing that I find super fascinating about the people that we have on this show and everything is the amount of people that come from rural areas, and especially Iowa. Like, there's just something about, like, I don't know how many Iowa like transplants that we've had on this show, and the majority, I think one has been a cyclone, but all of them, including yourself, are Hawkeyes. Let's talk about that. What was it like growing up so what part of Iowa did you grow up in, and how was that upbringing?
Yeah, I grew up in Southeast Iowa in a town called Washington, Iowa. Many people aren't familiar, so I always add that it's about 30 minutes from Iowa City, hence the Hawkeye area. And Iowa City was really my stomping grounds. And my family had a small business when I was growing up, an electrical wholesale company there in Washington. And my mom and my aunt ran a couple of lighting stores, and one of those was in Cedar Rapids. So my first job was actually working for my mom and my aunt, cleaning light fixtures, really, crystal chandeliers, the white glove sort of cleaning, and not a lot of fun, but that's what the family business was. And so I spent a lot of time in Cedar Rapids as well.
So is that kind of influence your entrepreneurial journey? Like, so do you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
I do. So actually my uncle, who bought the electrical wholesale business, was a bank president for many years and struck out with some of the family members. And like I said, bought the business, and then they kind of built it from there. So they were entrepreneurs. And, every night around the dinner table, we often had dinner with my aunt and uncle, and it was my aunt and uncle and my mom talking about the business. And that always involves talking about people in business, right? They had about 40 team members at that time. And so I think that's where my interest in HR originates too, is just all of the conversations about people at work around the dinner table while I was growing up.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one sister who lives in Cedar Rapids with her husband and has two little boys, my two little nephews, who are almost 3 and 6 months. So
sweet. And so how big was this business that your uncle and your mom were involved in? And like, was it decent size, or, coming from Washington, Iowa, which is a pretty small town, like you said, Cedar Rapids is the largest town. They had to be doing business back and forth through Cedar Rapids, right? But was it a pretty good size, and a lot of people that created some of those interesting dynamics?
It was a pretty decent sized business. I think at their peak, which was probably in the 90s to early 2000s, they had almost 40 employees. So it was a sizable business for a small town business, for sure. And the multiple locations for the lighting store. A lot of the lighting business was focused on new construction. And there was a lot of new home building happening in Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. So that's also part of the reason why I spent a great deal of time in those areas, because working for the lighting store, I didn't always clean the light fixtures. I eventually grew into selling them. And so that required spending a lot more time there too. So
as you grew older, did they try and get you to be a part of that business at all?
They would have really liked for me to stick around. They would have really liked for me to stick around. And, I remember having conversations with my aunt where she wasn't so sure about this industrial organizational psych grad school thing that I was going to do. And, I stayed pretty close to home for undergrad. I went to College in Cedar Rapids. So I had kind of been in their orbit
Mm.
for much of that time. And so moving to Minnesota for grad school was really where I moved away and, sort of branched off of the family. But when I was in college, I actually for a time worked for a couple of businesses in the mall just to like get out of the family business for a while and work for
Yeah.
someone else. So I was a barista in a coffee shop, which was really fun. And, I worked at the Gap and just really,
Yeah.
really fun jobs just to branch out of the family piece. But the family business was always there. And
Yeah.
so I would, have to spend time in the summers and help out holiday weeks and stuff.
So I kind of classify you as I'll say an extrovert, and you've got a great personality, and you're super easy to talk to. Has it always been that way? Were you like that when you were a little kid? And some things never change, or was that something that you grew into?
Always. I was the kid who got in trouble for talking in class.
Yeah.
My best friend's mom had to come and sit with us in class one day when I was growing up because we had gotten in so much trouble for talking in class. So yeah, always an extrovert, always enjoyed talking. Yeah.
So what kind of extracurricular things were you into when you were in high school that kept that energy flowing, kept you busy?
Oh my gosh. I tried a little bit of everything between junior high and high school. I actually took piano lessons for a while, which branched into voice lessons. The voice lessons were not incredibly successful. So my sister and I used to go for piano lessons together. There was this local woman who taught piano, and then she also did the vocal lessons. And my sister actually got kicked out from watching my vocal lessons and had to wait outside because she would start laughing while I was doing the scales. So that's not necessarily my niche. I played basketball briefly for a season and not necessarily an athlete. I kind of found, the yearbook, newspaper, things like that were really a lot of fun for me in high school. And I really enjoyed it, made a lot of friends through that. Those were kind of my niche for sure.
And so and then you said you went to college. What did you end up going to your undergrad for?
Psychology.
So you did go for psychology, and then you doubled down wow, that's fantastic.
Well, I always knew that I wanted to do psychology because when I was in high school, I saw industrial organizational psychology in a career counselor's handbook. And I went, that sounds super interesting. I would love to do that. And so I decided to go to grad school for that very early on. And I sort of knew it's pretty rare to, with an undergrad psych degree without going to graduate school, to have a career in something related, right? If you go for an undergrad degree in psych, you often need to go to grad school if you want to pursue something in that field.
Yeah. What drove that? I always talk about nature versus nurture, and we'll probably get into some kind of paradigm shifting event that got you down your entrepreneurial journey. But as we look back at your childhood and growing up and making this early conscious decision to want to go in for psychology, what do you think really, like, from a nature versus nurture standpoint, what do you think really drove that decision into going that path?
I think it was the fascination with people and all of the conversation around the dinner table about people at work.
Really?
Yeah. And getting into, conversations about they'd be hiring for a new job at the store or something and talking about the selection process and the interview process. And they got into using personality assessments at one time. Like all of those things were super interesting to me. My uncle was a really good leader. So seeing the differences between the ways that he engaged in the business and the way that my aunt engaged in the business, she wasn't as good of a leader as he was. She had other endearing qualities as my aunt, and I was close with her, but the leadership side was not her strength. And so seeing the differences between the two of them was always interesting to me. And I think it's all of those experiences that led to that interest.
I just find it I always find it fascinating when I meet somebody or talk to somebody that has got a course charted so early on in their youth, and they continue to follow it. And I mean, you still use this, you still tap into a lot of that every single day with your firm. were you a really good student? Were you like, well, flat out, were you just a good student? Like, to me, it seems like
Mhm.
good students always kind of have their plan figured out a little bit early on. And then you get meatheads
Yeah,
like me that are like trying to figure shit out until they're like 22 or 23, 24. So you kind of had your plan and your course charted.
I did. I very
Wow.
much did. And I think
Wow.
it was just, I think it was rooted in something, being lucky enough to have something that I was really interested in that happened to be something that I could make a living doing.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
one of the things that I've always been most grateful for, was sort of having that idea early on for what I wanted to do, and feeling like I'm able to do something that really gives me a lot of fulfillment that I
Hmm.
really enjoy. It doesn't feel like a drag or anything really ever.
And I think too that that's one of those things where it's ever changing. So it's evergreen. So there's always something new to learn. People always change. There's a lot to learn about what people came out of COVID and all this other stuff. And me, even personally, being a college dropout and not no higher education, barely getting through average at high school, I still find myself like, I don't like business books. I don't like sales books. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like any of that, but I love human behavior books and I love psychology books because I think it's just people are just so fascinating. And to know that early on and now still get a charge out of the work that you do on human behavior and psychology. I don't know. It very rarely do I meet people or talk to people on this show or just in life that have fulfilled that and are continuing on that path and continuing to double down on it as they continue to grow. I just think it's cool.
It is really cool. And when you were just talking about that, it made me think of Adam Grant. Are you an Adam Grant fan?
Oh, huge. Yep. Yep. Big fan.
I am such a huge fan of his, and I love the way that he talks about rethinking, and that it doesn't necessarily mean changing your mind, but every so often you need to go back and rethink things. And sometimes that means kind of reinventing yourself or the way that you do things. And I had this interest early on. I pursued it. I've certainly doubled down over time, but my career has evolved a lot, and things have also changed a lot in the world as my
Yeah.
career has evolved. And
Yeah.
that's required me to rethink the way that I do this work many times over. And that's probably one of the things that keeps it interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah. We had April Seifert on this show. She runs the Center for Psychological Strength, and she said everyone goes through a thing called decade shift. So every 7 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously you go through some kind of shift and something, you make changes in your life where some people are more conscious about it, kind of like what you were talking about, like rethinking and making it just a part of their process, where some people it's unconscious on that. Do you subscribe to that same belief?
I do. I do. And I believe that there are some people that are also just kind of restless and
Yeah.
always wondering what's next.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really heavily coincides with ambition, I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
often, right? Just the always what's next. And sometimes it's just pure, okay, on to the next thing. We need a new challenge. But I think there's definitely a theme of restlessness with people.
Yeah. So let's all right. Let's rewind a little bit and go back to when you made the decision to go to get your master's at Minnesota State. So how was that going from small city Iowa? You hadn't really left home because you were still going to Cole College, which is a hop, skip, and a jump away from your hometown. Going not that far, but far enough to where you were away from family and you're doing your own thing.
Yeah. It was actually a really huge thing because it wasn't, although I had always planned to go to school for this, things got kind of shaken up my last year of undergrad, headed into grad school, that led to me going to Mankato. So actually, my college boyfriend was English, was from the UK, and we were planning to get married
Hmm.
after graduation. So I was accepted into grad school in the UK for IO Psych, and we broke up before graduation. And so I had no plans for, I hadn't applied in the US. I hadn't taken the GRE. I hadn't done any of the things. So I had to kind of figure it out. And that's what ultimately led me to Minnesota State. So I actually had kind of a year off in between where I worked. A really good friend of mine growing up was living in Lawrence, Kansas. And she said, hey, why don't you come down and visit and stay for a while? Well, I ended up getting a job in Lawrence and working for a year while I applied to grad school and took the GRE and doing all of the things. And I worked at a halfway house for women in recovery from chemical dependency, which was really interesting work and really fulfilling work, very purpose-driven work, obviously. So that year off was actually a really good thing, but I took sort of a meandering path to Minnesota State and then ended up staying in Minneapolis because I graduated from the program, got my first job actually for a company called Opal Services in Eagan. I had interned there and got a job right out of grad school co-leading HR there, which was an amazing opportunity. Met my husband and just stayed.
Yeah. So. Did you ever at any point whether either in your undergrad or when you were getting your master's think that you wanted to go the clinical route?
I thought about it when I was working at the halfway house and I was just pretty rooted in IO. That's where my interest really was. I think maybe one of the reasons why my first job out of grad school and where I interned was with Opal, and Opal operates group homes for vulnerable adults. And so that was kind of a tie back to that, work in the halfway house and that sort of thing as well. But IO has always been where my passion lies. But I think that the work that I did during that time in the clinical space helped me to build a lot of empathy and just emotional intelligence in general that's helpful in the work that I do.
So we're going to dig into your career journey past Opal. And so let's take a quick break here. The time that you spent at Walmart, I want to dive into because I think that's got to be fascinating. So let's take a quick break. Let's listen to a few of our community supporters. They're the ones that help this thing stay afloat along with our awesome members like yourself. So let's give them a shout out here real quick. For more than 20 years, Kaisa has been the trusted financial advisor for women, business owners, executives, and high net worth families, developing financial plans designed to meet them where they are and propel them to where they want to be. Their mission is to remove the worry and stress associated with financial planning and replace it with clarity and confidence. The Kaisa team takes the time to understand each client's unique situation, from financial concerns to the visions that they have for current and future generations, in order to create a truly customized plan. Through consistent communication and personal attentiveness, Kaisa is fiercely devoted to personal well-being and financial prosperity. Get to know the Kaisa team and how they can serve you at kaisawealth.com. When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at bouleygroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. United Healthcare is dedicated to helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone by simplifying the healthcare experience, meeting consumer health and wellness needs, and sustaining trusted relationships with care providers. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.6 million physicians and healthcare professionals and over 6,000 hospitals, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting employers and their employees to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. For more information, visit United Healthcare at www.uhc.com. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. All right, we're back with Angela, and let's start digging into your career journey. So you spent a healthy amount of time at a big conglomerate, like big corporate. And I'm so pumped to talk about this because I love talking to people that have worked in a large corporate environment and then make a major shift, even though it was a little bit later on, to go entrepreneurial and do their own thing and have success in it. And so to me, there's a lot to learn in all of that. And you, with your psych background, I'm sure we could dive into all the psychological flexibility that you needed to have to be able to make that leap. So when you did you leave Opal and then go right to Walmart?
I did. So at the time that I started to think about what was next from Opal, there were a couple reasons. So I had been co-leading HR at Opal for a couple of years. It was a small company. I was able to do a lot of building of process and structure and tools and things like that. And it was time for me to get experience in a large organization where I could see all of those things in action rather than being this sort of early in career builder. And that was right around the time that Walmart was standing up a field HR team. So prior to that, their sort of call it HR professional leadership was all Bentonville based at their home office. And they would sort of fly out to the field and visit stores and such, but they were standing up this field HR organization. So a recruiter kept calling and I interviewed. And, I really liked the leader that I interviewed with who hired me there. There was a great story of change. It was a time when they were doing, they were making a lot of investments in their stores. The stores in this area weren't great at that time. So I liked the story of change and the opportunity to make an impact there. So I started out with responsibility for HR for 12 stores between Eastern Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. So, sort of the Red Wing, Hastings, Woodbury area, because we lived in Woodbury at the time, and then over to like Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls and up through Rice Lake, that area. Yeah. And then, my career just kind of continued to grow there, but this field HR team was new. So there was a lot of work to be done, right? It was awesome experience.
So that's actually pretty interesting. So you were kind of like intrapreneurs, right? Like you were standing up a whole new thing and so you're pressure testing things and systems and process was in development. So it was you were getting a little bit of a taste of what an entrepreneurial journey would feel like, just with some pretty healthy financial backing from a pretty large organization.
Yeah. And the other thing was I learned a lot about business. I had leaders at Walmart who were really, really good sort of sponsors of the HR team, being really, really good students of the business in a way that doesn't exist everywhere. I was incredibly fortunate that I was a fully immersed member of a business leadership team from day one. And there are a lot of companies where HR sort of operates at the periphery of the business, right? And like, oh, we'll call upon HR when there's an issue that we need to resolve. And it wasn't like that. It was immersion. And I learned so much from not only the leadership team that I worked with for what was called a market, or it was essentially like a district, right? But the store managers and the way that they each ran their store as entrepreneurs, essentially. Walmart had this program called Store Within a Store, where at the department manager, they probably still do, it was a Sam Walton thing, where at the department manager level in a store, like if you ran the grocery department, you were expected to know your business, to know your numbers, to be able to speak to the details in a way that was very entrepreneurial, actually. That's one of the most surprising things about Walmart that I think many people would find surprising is how entrepreneurial Fortune 1 can really be.
Do you think that the other retail organizations, like let's just use Target, for example, and you didn't work at Target, so I know you can't speak to it firsthand, but do you think other organizations that are retail focused have that same philosophy, or do you think that that's just a trickle down effect of what Sam Walton did and how he built Walmart?
I think it's a trickle down effect of the way that Sam Walton built Walmart, because what I heard from my colleagues, I had a lot of colleagues who had worked at Target as well. And so to your point, I can't speak to what it's like at Target. I've never worked at Target, but one of the things that I've heard is that things were much more, sort of, for lack of a better term, standardized at Target stores than they were at Walmart, which led to a much greater degree of, it seemed at the time, consistency in customer experience, perhaps, right? But sometimes less flexibility on the part of a store manager, for example, to impact some of the things within their business in the way that they might be expected to in a Walmart store at that time. And there are trade-offs in that, right? Certainly trade-offs in that, but that's what I heard from my colleagues who had come from Target as well, that there were, definitely benefits to both approaches.
So you were in a district or a region, right? So you were kind of all over the place. What was either you can go one or two directions, either like the craziest environment that you were in that you had to go to, or a crazy situation that, like, tell me a story.
So I was promoted to the regional role around the time that the oil boom was happening in North Dakota.
Oh boy.
And I had responsibility for HR for the Dakotas and northern Minnesota at that time. So that was probably the craziest experience in so many ways. That's honestly probably where my entrepreneurial itch really got scratched in that role, was because we had to do so many things that were completely different and completely new. So for those who may not remember, I mean, the oil boom in North Dakota around in the teens was just, I mean, it was
nuts.
amazing.
It was the Wild West.
It was the Wild West. Intense labor shortages. I remember in the stores, we had trailers of merchandise and behind the stores just to be able to try to keep enough merchandise there to keep. It was really like, how high is high? How much stuff can you sell if you can keep the stores full? Stores were doing crazy high volume, and we really, really needed people, and there just weren't enough people, right? So we had to get really creative. I remember putting together proposals for these really significant wage increases for stores. And that's where I learned also really how to work with business leaders to make those sorts of changes, and how to make a good business case for things like that. And also that businesses are, they're willing to make those investments when things are, sometimes there are people who are a little bit nervous to ask for some of those investments from the business, or unsure how to influence. And when you can show a direct link to the way that it's going to impact things, it makes a huge difference. But we did other things, like I think those were some of the first stores in the country to test these things that we call self-checkouts. Innovation born of necessity. There weren't enough cashiers, those types of things. So that was all happening around that time. And we would travel, we'd travel around the Dakotas. There's a great distance between stores, so sometimes they'd fly up company planes to fly leaders around, and that was kind of fun. It was great, and that it was a really, really intense time for the business and for everyone involved, where we all learned a lot.
Yeah, that region. I in my previous life, I was a partner at a commercial interiors firm, and we were hired to do the interiors for a bank in Western, in that area, right? And they didn't care about money. It was just like I flew out there one time on their private jets and, did a construction meeting, and people were living in tents and hotel rooms and campers, and like it was literally the Wild West. So I can only imagine the pounding of volume that went through any Walmart store that was in that area, just so that people could get their hands on supplies, because it was more people than it was stuff. Period. Like they couldn't
Oh my
keep liquor in
gosh.
the liquor stores. You couldn't keep people out of bars. You couldn't keep merchandise into stores, like anything. I can only imagine that world that you were had an arm's length from.
You just reminded me, we sold tiny houses in the parking lot in Williston.
That doesn't surprise me for a hot second, right? Like it was just
They were,
people
I mean,
didn't
it
have
was,
guys were making, typically guys, but they're making $100,000 a year. And it was just, they're working tons. And then when they weren't working, they were trying to either get rest or party. And you got to have a place to stay. They just didn't have enough place. That was nuts. That was a crazy, like 3 to 5 year period of time. That was just kind of a little bit of a blip on the screen. But boy, just to see that stuff firsthand, I can only imagine what you saw. Crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
All right.
pretty amazing.
All right, so let's talk about LiftBridge. So what was so you went from Walmart to LiftBridge and started your own firm. So what kind of was the thrust to go and get into doing your own thing and taking this thing home?
Yeah. So for a time in between Walmart and LiftBridge, I worked for Marvin as well.
Oh, that's right.
For
Yeah.
almost 5 years in, the HR space, doing similar work. And just ultimately, gosh, what really led to LiftBridge was this entrepreneurial streak and the desire. I've always loved to have my hands in a lot of different things. It was just the right time, the right opportunity to do it. So I started LiftBridge originally I started out on a pro bono consulting project, actually, which was really, really cool. It was in a space that I didn't have as much experience in a benefits project, helping a company to overhaul their benefits. And it was just really cool. And it felt like, gee, I'd like to do this all of the time for lots of different companies. And it was just a dream come true, really. And so it took off from there.
And was that pro bono project the spark that you needed to kind of give you the confidence, like, hey, I can do this. Like, I know I can go out on
Yes,
my own because I'm able to crush this thing. Now I could just need to expound on that.
that's exactly right. And it was a good time in my life too, to start my own thing. My husband was super supportive. He's a successful patent attorney, and it's just a good time in my personal life to branch out also, which was really good.
So I normally do an average job at this, so I want to be very deliberate about this. Your business is relatively new, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to talk about the work that you do. And I know you've got your hands in multiple different facets of the HR side of things. So talk to me a little bit about the service offerings that you do have, and then I want to talk a little bit about where you want to take this thing and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I operate under the philosophy, and LiftBridge is built under the philosophy that business is personal. And there are a lot of people who say it's not personal, it's business. Well, that's a bunch of crap, right? Just ask their customers or the people who are working there. Business is very personal indeed. And also, you have to make sure, people often think of HR consulting as being like, let's revise our handbook, or, let's put these new policies in place. And yes, a lot of those things are, certainly maybe needed, but that's not the sort of work that is most needed from HR now. If that's the only work that HR is doing, we're under delivering, right? So we really need to be connecting. And I talked to you earlier about, my experience, or pretty early in career, being immersed in the business and learning really early on the importance of connecting what is the strategy for a business and where a business is trying to go with its approach to customers and what the customer experience looks like and how they think about customers and their target audience and such, with their people strategy or their team experience and how they think about that and how all those pieces tie together. And it should all be rooted in where a business wants to go and in a business's purpose and values. And so everything that we do in LiftBridge is geared towards tying those pieces together. And I end up talking with, my clients are usually either CHROs of small, mid-size, or large companies too, or small to mid-size business owners. Mm-hmm. And we always start with understanding what is your strategy and where you're trying to go. And then how can we support from a people standpoint? And sometimes that means advice, right? Some of the clients that I work with just want some advice from time to time. They feel like they generally have their arms around what's happening with HR. Sometimes it's more like, help us to build skill in this area, help us to think in a more forward-thinking way or in a more innovative way about HR. I spend a lot of time helping clients to be more innovative in the HR space. And sometimes it's come in and do the work for us. Whether that be redesigning their comp and benefits to their org design, to helping to figure out who's the target audience that you should be going after when you're recruiting. All of these things are possibilities, but it should all tie back to what their business strategy is ultimately.
And do you feel like, is this something as you continue to evolve your offering? It sounds to me like it's pretty broad, right? Like you'll work with any size organization. It doesn't sound to me like you're niching down on any type of industry or anything like that.
No.
And right now, am I correct in saying you're flying solo, but you've got some partners that you work with as like outsourced resources, right?
That's exactly right. So for example, I have somebody on the team who's a true compensation expert. And so while I do a lot of work related to incentive design and that sort of stuff, because I did some of that work at Walmart and I love it. It all goes back to the psych piece, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. Incentives. He does okay, how do we build the incentive plan and what does that look like? And, those types of things. And then, people who specialize in coaching more deep into the IO psych place, somebody who does fractional work. So I've also met quite a few people along the way and built relationships with people who do work in these different mm-hmm. areas. And it's really about bringing like-minded people together, right?
Yeah.
Both clients and team members. Yeah.
And then do you, so tell me a little bit, you're going to be launching a podcast here soon. This is fun. Like, you just dropped this on me when we were just getting ready to start recording. So tell me a little bit about this. This is exciting.
So it's brand new. And it's so funny that we were just coincidentally talking about the Dakotas, because when I was leading the HR team for the Dakotas, there was somebody on my team. Her name is Indy, and she and I spent a lot of windshield time together in South Dakota, and just really became friends, and we've stayed connected. And a decade later, we decided to start a podcast, and it's called The Heart of a Job, Your How to Love What You Do. And it's for really anybody who wants to love what they do. And so we just interview people we admire to hear their career stories and what they love about their work. And as it happens, each episode starts with a theme. It has a theme because we admire these folks for different things. And our first episode we'll release like 3 at a time starting in January. And our first episode is with one of my favorite bosses ever, who I worked for at Walmart. And he was a really awesome boss because he was so damn funny, like really high expectations. And, everybody on his team, we all did great work because he expected it of us, right? But he was just funny. So, and I think that's so important. And I think people don't focus enough on how important humor really is at work.
I could not agree more. I mean, you were talking about, when you build, you keep it, keeping it personal, and business is personal. I think, I don't want to go as far as saying business is family. I just disagree with that, because you can't fire your family member or anything like that. But I think, really good teams have that, and really good leaders have that in them. And I think that sense, you see that in sports, you see that in really well-run businesses, that there's got to be someone that has got leadership, high level leadership within the organization, that, they can maybe be a little self-deprecating, or they don't take themselves too serious, but they take the business serious, and they know how to cut that tension with a knife. And I think that EQ side of things is really underrated, I think, from a leadership perspective, especially in a large organization where people can get lost, like Walmart.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I just facilitated an offsite with a team, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, where it was my first time. I've spent a lot of time with the leader of the team, but it was my first time spending time with the entire team. And they were just so damn funny. And they had really good rapport with each other. And I think it was because there's some vulnerability required for humor, right?
Oh yeah.
There just is. And if you have a team dynamic where people are funny and can be vulnerable enough to laugh at themselves and just be silly, that's actually a really important thing. So that's why one of my values for LiftBridge is keep it real.
Yeah. I like it. I think I was thinking through, I was going through your website and just kind of getting my shit together for this podcast, and that jumped out at me. And I think we'll probably end up, maybe we'll title this is keeping it real, because that's aligned with your personality and your journey and stuff like that. Let's keep it real. Tell me a little bit about your family before, if we're going to do 9 questions here in a little bit. But so you alluded to your husband, Tim. I met Tim, great dude. We were at the Saints game when I met him. And so it was great to meet him. And you got all sorts of fun travel plan and stuff like that. So tell me about a little bit about your husband and your dogs.
Yeah. So we live in Stillwater, first of all. So absolutely love Stillwater. Tim is from Stillwater. And I think that's probably what brought us back here. Actually, we share an office downtown. I'm looking out on Main Street right now. It's just a fantastic town. But yeah, Tim's a patent attorney. He's originally from here. Started his career as an electrical engineer, actually at the Coalition9 Saints game. He, by coincidence, another Coalition9 member's husband, he used to work with him at Guidant, a million years ago. So it was really funny. So just the Coalition9 connection piece is huge too, right? So since you mentioned that Saints game, it reminded me. But started his career as an electrical engineer in med device and decided to go to law school when he was mentored by a patent attorney, and has just built a great career there. And he and I love to travel, and we have these little Springer Spaniels. We got our first dog that we adopted right after we got married was by coincidence a Springer, and we just absolutely fell in love with Springers. And and then my family is still in Iowa.
Cool.
Like I said, and we have these little nephews that are almost 3 and 6 months old, and they're just a hoot, really fun ages, and we like to go there. We probably, I can't believe it's been almost a decade ago, went for our pilot's licenses together.
Oh, fun fact.
That was really fun. And so Tim does the flying now. I don't do much of the flying anymore, but going for the license was a lot of fun, and it makes it handy if we want to go visit the nephews in Iowa or whatever. But I think our next undertaking might be the sailing charter license, because it was so much fun learn something like that together. So
yeah,
it's
and I
fun.
think I've heard that's challenging. Like that's not easy. Like, you look at people getting the pilot's license is one thing, but this is equally challenging in a different way because the seas or water can be more unpredictable than the skies in some situations.
Yeah, it can be. And I went sailing for the first time. We went to the San Juans for an anniversary trip 5-ish years ago, I guess. And that was my first time sailing, and I absolutely loved it. I might be kind of an adrenaline junkie.
It sounds a little bit like that. Yeah, I like it.
Not
It's cool that
skydiving. I won't do that, but
it's cool that you guys do that stuff together. You don't have kids. I don't have kids. And we talked about that before we started recording. And, here's one thing I will say, and we don't have to go deep into this because that's a whole nother podcast, is that it sounds to me that you've got undying support, right? From Tim and all the time he's got your back. And me, I feel the same way. I would hope I think my wife would say the same thing, right? Like we have each other's backs, and, having that support at home makes all the stuff we talked about earlier on about your entrepreneurial journey or these choices that you've made and all that other stuff. It just makes it that much easier when you got a partner in crime.
Oh, 100%. I believe that who you choose as your partner is the most important decision that you make. It matters more than where you go to school. It matters more than the job that you do or what you study, or it just matters more than anything else for all of the reasons that you just described, right?
Yep.
It impacts everything else.
It
does.
Hugely. It influences your mindset, everything. So
I
could not agree more. Like I mean, a lot of decisions I've made, I look back to where I just needed the confidence, and the confidence that I get from my wife, Tiff, is 100%. I give her so much credit, and that was I needed to make a good decision there, and I'm glad I crushed it. It sounds like you did too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do 9 questions, learn more about Angela. Let's take a quick break, listen to our community supporters. We'll be right back. If you're an entrepreneur or married to one, your journey is complex. You want financial advice that impacts your whole net worth, including your business, not just stock market investments. You also want a partner that quarterbacks the relationships between the CPA, estate planner, banker, and other trusted advisors. That's where the team at eWealth Partners comes in. We love helping you and your spouse design a financial plan that aligns and empowers you. A plan that addresses your concerns, priorities, and goals tailored to reach your long-term vision. A long-term vision that is worth the pursuit today. Visit ewealthpartners.com to learn how they can help couples like you. eWealth Partners, holistic financial planning for entrepreneurs. Investment advisor services offered through AdvisorNet Wealth Management. eWealth Partners and AdvisorNet Wealth Management are not affiliated. Verseek Search and Consulting is thrilled to support Coalition 9 and this podcast, and we are just as excited to have them as a partner. Verseek is a Minnesota-based, high-performance recruiting firm that specializes in interim solutions, direct hire, and executive leadership search. Their team of experienced professionals and seasoned leaders across various areas of expertise and industries have been in your shoes. They quickly assess your whole company and identify key elements that will take your business to the next level. Your company's success hinges on the capacity of your people, and few areas of your business are more critical than your finance and accounting team. Your company's success hinges on the capacity of your people. Verseek can help connect you with the talented candidates within finance and accounting, along with other areas of expertise in executive search, direct hire, and interim solutions. People are the ultimate business advantage. Find your people together with Verseek and make the best possible for your business. Learn more and contact Verseek by visiting verseek.com and following them on LinkedIn. Every year brings new challenges for Minnesota business leaders, and USI Insurance is here to take the pressure off of the employee benefits decision. Having a local presence with national resources, USI combines a client-centric culture with leading-edge technical resources so you can make an informed decision on your benefits investment. The USI team has been deeply committed to investing into our local communities and utilizes their expertise to provide solutions you can count on to protect your greatest asset, your employees. USI has been partnering with Twin Cities businesses for decades, and they would welcome the opportunity to do the same for you. Visit USI.com to learn how USI's approach to risk management and employee benefits delivers customized, actionable solutions with bottom-line impact. All right, everybody needs a bank. Not just any bank, a good community bank. From personal needs like checking and savings accounts to business services like financing and M&A support, the team at Flagship Bank is there to provide you with the assistance you need so you can spend less time thinking about your finances and more time enjoying what your money can do for you. To learn more, head over to Flagship Banks, that's flagshipbanks with an S.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Flagship Bank. Investing in you. If you're anything like me, you know enough to be dangerous when it comes to finance, yet need some help when things get complicated. All-in-One Accounting provides the right financial expertise and leadership to align with your stage of growth. From outsourced accounting and bookkeeping to strategic financial planning, the team of accounting rock stars at All-in-One Accounting are passionate about positively impacting the businesses and lives of their clients. You need to check them out at allinoneaccounting.com. All-in-One Accounting, taking our clients from financial chaos to business clarity and beyond. In addition to the community supporters you heard from on the show today, I also want to give a quick shout out to our evolving level community supporters, Carlson Partners, Fluid Interiors, Keystone Group International, Modern Foundation, and Rev Advisory Group. All right, we're back with Angela. 9 questions so people can get to know you a little bit better. Fun things. You have no idea what I'm about to ask you. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I confirm.
Right.
No
Good.
idea.
Good. All right. Question 1. What is one guilty pleasure that you indulge in?
Oh my gosh. Bad TV is probably a big one.
Give me an example.
Oh my gosh, do
Just
I
one.
have to? It's
Yes.
really embarrassing.
Yeah, come on.
I have been known to watch The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
That is,
Yeah.
You're not, I don't think you're the first person to say that on this show. So that's not that bad. Yeah. It could be way worse than that. Yeah. So that's good. That's not shocking to me at all. Okay. If you could give a TED talk on anything except something related to your career, what would it be?
Probably about courage. And I say that because of the learning to fly, because I was terrified of flying for a really long time. And actually it was flying around the Dakotas in small planes that kind of desensitized me.
Yeah.
And made me, want to actually try the flying lessons and such, but going from being afraid of something to feel that feeling of being able to conquer a fear, and how do you do that, would probably be it.
Love it. Good. That's a great one. Describe to me your perfect breakfast.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you asked this, because we actually have a breakfast that we make and we call it perfect breakfast.
Sweet.
At our house.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it is literally just scrambled eggs, bacon, and hash browns.
That sounds perfect to me. That's my go-to.
Really straightforward. And I have to say that one, it's not what I order in a restaurant, but we literally call it perfect breakfast. It's in my Fitness Pal for tracking as perfect breakfast. Yeah.
That is to me the perfect breakfast. I love that you just went basic. That is delicious. What was the first album that you ever purchased on your own? So I say album because I don't want to say CD or tape or anything or record. I don't want to date anybody. So first album that you bought on your own.
I am trying to remember what I bought on my own for the first time, because I belonged to that, was it called like BMG or something, the cassettes.
Yeah. What a ripoff. Yeah.
Total. We were just talking about this last week. It was a total ripoff. What an amazing model for them, right?
There's a reason why they didn't last very long. Yeah. Taking advantage of dumb kids.
I think it might have been, was it Janet Jackson? I remember my mom buying me a George Michael cassette, not realizing fully what she was doing.
Right. Yeah. What she was getting you into.
Madonna, the Immaculate Collection might have been.
Yeah.
Those were some of the ones that I was really, those are some of the first ones that I can remember.
Right. That's good. All right. Anyway, sweet.
Yeah.
What is one quality in a person that impresses you?
I think it's courage.
Courage again. Yeah.
I really admire people who think differently about things and encourage other people to think differently about things. Like we talked about Adam Grant earlier and rethinking. And I think that requires courage, and there's some vulnerability in that too. Those are probably the things that I admire the most.
Yeah.
But I always sort for humor. You make me pick one thing, Aaron.
Well,
I can't pick one thing.
Well, you just said 3, so you bucked this. You bucked the system anyway. You said courage, and then you said vulnerability and sense of humor. So we don't have to go rip that all apart and rank those. But I think in that same sense, we kind of got that out of some of the things you like in previous leaders too. So it all makes sense.
True.
Heck yeah.
True. Yeah.
Name one thing on your bucket list.
we actually are probably going to take one of these trips this summer. We really like jazz festivals, and we went to the Monterey Jazz Festival a long time ago. Cool. And we really want to go to the Montreux Jazz Festival and the North Sea Jazz Festival. And I think we're gonna check off one of those this summer. So that'll be fun.
That's awesome. No one's ever given me that response, by the way.
It's travel related.
That's a great one. I love it. Well, yeah, for sure. I love it. That's good. These are things I would have never known about you. So that's why I love doing this, is learning more about people.
I think one of the reasons why travel is high on the list for me is because we couldn't do it for a while, a couple of years ago, right? And so it became like we need to do it while we can, because you never know what's around the corner type of thing in a different way. So
take advantage of it. What is one thing that you enjoy spending money on?
There are quite a few things, actually. You know, I've already talked about travel. That's a really obvious one. I also just really, really like, so I do this thing with my nephews where I don't buy them a lot of toys. I get them savings bonds. And I know it sounds super boring, but they have a ton of toys. They have every toy under the sun, right? I mean, and I buy them a toy for each birthday and holiday just to have something to open. But I really enjoy doing this savings bonds thing. And then the other thing that I really, really like is I am in charge of the birthday cakes, because I love getting like really cool cakes. And so I kind of don't care how much it costs within reason, right? But it's like such an auntie thing to do. I like spending money being an aunt. That's what it comes down to.
We got to it.
Most fun thing. It's the most fun thing to
anything
do
for your nephews.
And things that would be like, parents would be like I bought my friend's baby a cashmere sweater years ago. Because why? Because that is something parents don't buy their children.
And babies need cashmere. Let's just be honest, right? More babies need cashmere.
Aunt. That's it. Okay. You helped me hone in on it. You helped me hone in.
We dialed it in. See, there's another one we had to dial in. All right. All right. I only give you one would you rather question. Would you rather give up toothpaste or deodorant? None of this multiple option stuff. You either get one or the other.
I think I would give up toothpaste before I would give up deodorant, because you didn't say anything about mouthwash and gum.
Right, I did it. Yeah. All right. You saw the loophole. I'm good with that.
Oh, gross. That's gross. Aaron, that can't be the 9th question. You can't finish on that one.
All right. Okay, last one. God. I always try and do something that's a little philosophical or something with the last one. So if you could have dinner with 2 people, one dead and one alive, who would those 2 people be?
Alive would probably be, I actually really admire Oprah. I did an activity recently where we went around the room. It was for a women's leadership group that I am part of, where we went around the room and said, if you could be anyone else for 24 hours, who would you be? And the first person who came to my mind was Oprah, honestly. Like, it's amazing how many people wanted to be T Swift, right? Not entirely shocking, but
yeah.
But I'd actually rather be Oprah. I'd rather be Oprah for 24 hours than T Swift. But then there were a lot of people who said Gayle King, and that would be fun too. If I could have dinner with one person who's dead, it would probably be my uncle. Because the one who was like really inspiring to me, that'd be cool.
Yeah. That'd be a fascinating. So I think about it at a higher level, like you, Oprah, and your uncle having dinner together would be a pretty fascinating dinner.
Fun. It would be fun for sure. Right. Yeah. It would be fun.
I love it. All right. You survived. Let's wrap this thing up here. We're pushing an hour, which, you're one of those people I could always have multiple conversations with, and those topics we could have ripped through and done a whole nother podcast on. So maybe someday. How can people get a hold of you, and how can they learn more about you and get in touch with you if they want to bring you on?
a few different ways. Connecting on LinkedIn is always a good thing. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website. It's liftbridgestrategy.com. My email is super simple. It's angela@liftbridgestrategy.com. Yeah, just reach out. People should just reach out if they're interested. And I always love connecting with like-minded people, right?
Sweet.
It's always fun. So
Good. Good.
yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled that you're a part of our community. Your group is thriving and you're a huge part of that. And Susie's always raving about the energy that you bring to the group.
Aw.
So thank you so much for obviously being a part of
Thank
C9.
you.
And thanks a lot for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. It's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I love it. So on behalf of Angela, this has been the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.